Climate change affects different parts of the planet in different ways, but it's definitely a bigger problem for younger generations. That was the main reason for thousands of young people who came together recently on City Hall Plaza. To share some thoughts on the messaging and politics around climate is a communication strategist with a background in journalism and law. We'd like to welcome one of the principal partners with Slowey McManus Communications, James McManus. Thank you very much for being with us, Jim.
Thank you, Chris.
So just a reminder of you, some of the things that we've been hearing about climate change, things going on right here in the city of Boston this summer. What would you point to?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tremendous moment for climate change activism. Just last Friday, we had thousands of people out on City Hall Plaza marching to the State House, demanding action on the climate crisis. We have just today, we have at the UN, there's a climate summit. And we had, this extraordinary young woman, Greta Thunberg, thundering to the delegates saying, how dare you ask us to make sacrifices that you wouldn't make, that your generation wouldn't make. There's a lot going on. The media coverage is kind of broadening, and there were 200 media outlets around the country. It was organized by Columbia Journalism Review and The Nation, and they committed to covering climate stories over the last week. And so that consciousness of the climate crisis and the different facets really making a difference in penetrating the consciousness of people in all different ethnic and economic groups.
I'm used to thinking of smaller numbers of activists, but I did see some of that crowd on the plaza. And I guess the sheer number, what are these teenagers reading about that's so scary for them?
Well, it's interesting. In Boston, we have, right here in Boston and in other cities, we have young people at an early age being exposed to information and impressions and photographs and videos of different parts of the manifestations of the climate crisis all over the world. In Boston, we have Project Green Schools. We have a Green Academy in South Boston. We have Youth Can. My daughter was at Boston Latin 10 years ago. She was involved in Youth Can. So at a very early age now, students are being kind of educated about what's going on. And I think you're seeing that kind of percolate through, climate activism throughout people's different ages. And now you see a lot of different groups getting involved, which is an exciting moment for the climate activism.
Of course, another thing that comes into play here is what's going on politically, because at least with all of these debates among Democratic candidates for president, that's getting a lot of attention. Markey wants a climate debate with Kennedy. So.
It is great. It's great to see this Green New Deal was rolled out, and it got some pushback on for different fronts. But I think it started a conversation that's important, and there'll be different pieces of that maybe make their way into national legislation. And so we've got this battle between California and the Trump administration over automobile emissions. And so I think there's a lot going on here politically, and that's going to kind of play out over the next over the presidential campaign, which we've never really had a climate as one of the key issues in a presidential campaign before.
Well, there are a lot of people in the fossil fuel sector. They want that to flourish. Australia had an election earlier this year. That was a big issue for them, and the fossil fuel people carried the day. So it looks like it's going to be a tough road, too, for climate change people.
Well, you can fight reality, but you can't beat it. This is what's going on in the world. And insurance companies understand this. Developers understand this. People who are working on infrastructure understand it. City planners, they're the ones that really are, where the rubber hits the road, and they understand that things need to change. And so, yeah, it's going to take a little while for, some elected officials in some places. But just take in Massachusetts, if you're a climate science denier, that's the disqualification pretty much for an elected official here. You couldn't get elected in Massachusetts and in many other places if you just deny the existence of climate change.
This is BNN News. We're talking with Jim McManus from Slowey McManus Communications. Jim, just as there are fossil fuel hotspots in this country, there are, I guess, climate change hotspots, and maybe Boston is one of them.
Yeah, we have the luxury here. In the same way that we have a life sciences cluster here, we have a climate cluster here in Massachusetts, which means that there are academics here, there are researchers, there are private companies. There's the Boston Green Ribbon Commission, one of my clients, and they are a convener of a lot of research reports. They're helping this. They're working with the city. The city of Boston under Mayor Walsh is doing a great job, doing some of the preparatory work. So there's a lot of different energy and expertise here in Boston that's being harnessed to address climate change.
Now, it sounds like a great opportunity for people with advanced degrees to make some money, but what about a larger population? Is there something in it for them to work on solving this problem?
Yeah, about 10 years ago, there was this One Thing campaign, asking people to do one thing to help address climate crisis. And I think we've advanced to the point where you have to do about three things. Everybody needs to do about three things. And the Green Ribbon Commission came out with a report recently, the carbon-free Boston. How do we get to a carbon-free economy and a carbon-free city? And there were three things that they encourage everybody to get on board with. And this affects public policy, it affects investment. The first thing is to really retrofit our workspaces and our living spaces so that they're environmentally tight and sustainable. The second thing is to electrify our heat, air conditioning, and transportation. And the third thing is to encourage and really expand solar, renewables, wind power, all of that. If we do those three things, we're going to get pretty far down the road toward a carbon-free economy here.
One of the organizations responding to this issue is Youth Can, and it's interesting what they're doing because this is not just about the physical effects of climate change, but maybe some of the social stresses that are coming at us.
Yeah. People want to live in a place that is where they can live responsibly. They want to have a just city, a place where everybody is kind of invested and benefits from the economic, the health benefits of a cleaner city, and making sure that that Boston is a place where we'll be able to prosper, and it's a place where everybody can live and have a healthy environment. And I think that's something that the city is working on very hard. We've got some tremendously talented people in the Mayor's Office of Environment, and they're working on how to make Boston a livable city for everybody.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Chris. Bye.
Jim McManus from Slowey McManus Communications. Up ahead, a dialogue on policing and criminal justice. We'll hear about a youth development program organized by Children's Services of Roxbury.